I'm filming in the evening tonight, so this is water instead of tea. Usually I film in the mornings, so I drink tea, but I don't want to be up all night, so... I also normally shave before filming. I didn't do that either. The details I just shared with you are exposition, information about events relevant to the setting, characters, or other elements of a story. Exposition competes with narrative for space on the page, where narrative describes what's happening through descriptions, actions, and dialogue. Exposition gives us background information about the characters and the setting. As you can well imagine, this makes exposition fertile ground for telling and info dumping, which is why this is the topic of our fourth video in the Show Don't Tell series. Poorly written exposition is the penny on the railroad tracks that could potentially derail your story. Actually, we got rid of the penny, so I guess that would make it the nickel on the track. Canada got rid of the penny in 2015. You would have needed that expository detail to get that joke. Anyway, here are some tips on how to exposit in a way that shows rather than tells. Tip number 1, show the effects, aftermath, or ramifications of major expository events in the present world of the narrative or in the characters. When you think about it, every decision and event in the past has led you to where you are at this very moment. And not just your decision. Everything from the whims of world leaders to the position of black holes to the tiny fluctuations in the spin of every electron in the universe has all technically resulted in you sitting where you are at this very moment. Unless you're standing, which probably means there's a black hole in the wrong place or something, I don't know. My point is the past has a major effect on the present. One might say the only effect on the present. And we can glean a lot about the past of a world or the past of a character based on their present condition. If there was a big asteroid impact in the past, we would expect there to be a big hole somewhere. I think the technical term is a crater. If two countries had been at war in the past, we would expect a frayed political relationship. If a character had a bad experience eating a hamburger, we would expect them to get antsy anytime ground beef is near. We are nothing but our pasts. This is broadly referred to as indirect exposition, which, just like indirect characterization, involves showing details to the reader through descriptions or action or dialogue and allowing them to infer the details. While this won't give them all of the information, it will likely be enough to achieve your narrative objectives. And a lot of times a reader not having all of the information might be better than them sitting through a tele-info dump about the setting. After all, if you want the reader to know exactly what happened to a setting or to a character in detail, why not just... Tip number 2, show important events in the setting or a character's backstory through flashbacks. One of the best ways to clue the reader into events that happened in the past is to, well, show those events happening. And unless your story has time travel, the only way to really do that is through flashbacks. Rather than dumping the history of a region or an important event in the backstory of a character into direct exposition, you can relate this information by actually writing the scene where the event occurred. This moves it away from an expository focus to a narrative focus. Flashbacks have the obvious advantage of allowing you to more easily show events happening the way you can in any normal narrative scene. They have the main disadvantage of being flashbacks. You have to be really careful anytime you leave the main narrative timeline of your story. A lot of long, seemingly irrelevant flashbacks are going to distract from the main story and in all likelihood bore and confuse the reader. A lot of people will skip over flashbacks or put down the book entirely if it has a lot of them. To avoid this, it's best to keep flashbacks short. Make sure it's clear to the reader that what they are reading is in fact a flashback. It's best to jump into a flashback at a scene or a chapter break. Make sure you're generating a lot of questions in the main narrative that are answered in the flashbacks. This will make the reader more interested in reading the flashbacks. And make sure that the information presented in the flashbacks is absolutely necessary. In fact, it might be argued that you should be doing that all of the time. Tip number 3, only exposit expository exposition that expressly needs to be exposited. I have a very lean and mean theory when it comes to world building and exposition in general. In my opinion, any expository detail that you share with the reader should be relevant in some way, either to the plot, tone, themes, or characters of the story. Everything should have a purpose, a reason for being there other than just being cool. Because if it was cool, why doesn't it have to do with the plot? Part of this is because I love Easter eggs and meaning behind things that don't seem to have any meaning, so I want to make everything an Easter egg and make everything have meaning. Now, this is just my opinion and view on the matter. There are, I'm sure, contradictory opinions out there, but I think most people would agree that dumping a lot of irrelevant expository information is not a good idea. And something can still be relevant if it contributes to the themes or in setting the tone of the story. But if it doesn't relate to either of those points, then it's dead weight. If you're trying to make your exposition less telly, one good way to do that is to simply do less exposition. Remember that not answering every question the reader has can be good, and that achieving what you want to achieve with a narrative can often be done with less exposition than you may think. If a part of the setting or a character's backstory can be left out without impacting the major things that you want to achieve with the story, then take a look and see if it really needs to be there at all. I mean, I cut out the entire conclusion to this video because I didn't think it was necessary. Now I'm wishing I hadn't done that because I have to make up a conclusion on the spot. I hope you enjoyed this video and found the advice in it useful. I think we have one more week of show don't tell. I think we're talking about world building next week, which is kind of strange because we sort of talked about world building this week. I need to fire that script writer. If you want to see more stuff like this, you can check out all my other writing advice related videos and subscribe to my channel. I post new writing advice videos every Wednesday. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.